The FlexiProject system allows us to define dependencies between tasks. If we want to clearly indicate their sequence, we use the setting of dependencies between tasks. I am in a sample project where I have created tasks with start dates and an end date. As we can see on the schedule, we have two main phases here, each with several tasks and milestones. If I wanted to indicate that one task should follow another, I would use task dependency creation. To do this, there are a few options. The first is in the Gantt chart view. When I hover over a given phase or task, I see these dots at the end and at the beginning of the task. Let's assume I want to specify that phase number 1 should occur after phase number 2. So I take this dot and hold down the left mouse button. I move it to the start of the next task. Now the system creates a dependency between these tasks for us. As you can see, there is an orange arrow here. What does it mean? After clicking, I see that it links phase number 1 to phase number 2. The type of relation is such that the first task ends, then the second one starts. We also have a fixed lag set, meaning a constant difference between the phases. If I save and don't change anything here, it means that the system will keep maintaining this difference. That is, if I move a given task, I see that the whole phase will also shift in time. Well, let's assume that our project starts a few weeks earlier. Then the second phase will also be linked to the appropriate date. If I had the fixed lag function unmarked, this dependency information would be just informational, so I could move tasks after each other. If phase number 1 ended earlier, this dependency would simply be indicated as information, but it would not affect the faster completion of phase number 2. However, if I go back and select fixed lag, it means that I cannot change the time when phase number 2 will be executed, because it is strictly dependent on phase number 1. Let's create a few more dependencies to indicate the sequence between tasks as well. Let's assume that first, I would like to complete task 1.2, meaning I would like both of these tasks to start at the same time. Therefore, I define the start function. In both cases, I connected the beginnings of these tasks. Such dependency will be created. Next, I want to specify that task 1.3 should occur after the completion of these two tasks. Here I will also mark it as fixed lag with a 4-day delay, and the system will maintain this 4-day delay for us all the time. Then a milestone, which is a single event, a point in time on the timeline, is also to occur at the very end, although here I don't need some delay that would be fixed. I assume that in mid-March I will achieve this milestone. As we can see, all the other tasks are shifting in phase 2. Depending on the changes in phase 1, this is to maintain the first established dependency between phase 1 and phase 2. If we return to the list view, I can see here that for tasks that are somehow dependent on each other, I have an icon created that, when hovered over, shows me the details of which element the given task is dependent on, or, in this case, from which phase. And so, in the case of phase number 2, as we have established, it is dependent on phase number 1. Let's move on to the details of the given schedule element. It is worth noting that such dependencies will also be visible in the task details. Here we have information about which element the schedule element depends on, along with the specified date resulting from this relationship. It will show me the completion date of phase number 1, and then when phase number 2 can begin. After clicking on the pencil icon, I am able to edit these dependencies. So if I wanted to state that there will be a 10-day break between these phases, which I want the system to adhere to, after clicking Save, this dependency will be automatically recalculated, also affecting all other tasks. Besides the ability to create dependencies through the Gantt chart view, we also have the option to create dependencies by entering the task details in the 3 dots. We click Add Dependency. Here, the system will ask us if we want to create a dependency from an element in this project or an element from another project. For now, I will choose the first option. We will return to the second one shortly. When I click Next, I have the option to choose which element task 2.1 should depend on. I would like it to depend on task 2.2, meaning that task number 2.2 must start at the same time task 2.1 ends. This is a specific type of relationship, but let's assume that's what we want to create in the system. When I click Save, such a dependency will appear primarily in the information here. However, upon entering the Gantt chart view, we see that such a relationship is also created. What about if we wanted to create a dependency between one of the tasks in this project and another task in a different project? In this case, I go into the task with which I want to create a connection and click Add Dependency. Here, I choose Select an element from another project, and from the list, I have the option to select the project with which I want to connect, with which element I want to link the given task. I choose a task from the list here to create a connection with. Just like with the previous option, I specify the type of dependency according to my managerial needs and project requirements. After clicking Save, this information about the impact will appear in the details of this task. It is worth noting, however, that when we create a link between projects in this way, it is only informational for us at this point. That is, these tasks will, of course, have information that they are dependent on each other. However, any changes, such as when we had shifts of some elements on the schedule in the case of delays or an earlier start of a given task, will not take place in this case because this data is only for our reference and awareness. It only has informational value about the connection, but without mutual impact on the schedules. However, there is a possibility to create links between tasks from different projects so that any changes, deviations, or delays affect the related elements. And we create this by building a project program in which the interconnected projects will be located. To create this, we need to go to the Projects tab and create a new project program. Then we select the projects we want to add to such a program. Adding to the program will allow us to work on a common schedule for both projects, where we can create dependency creation operations. When I click Save, you will see that I have here an aggregated schedule that contains elements from both projects. When I go to the Gantt chart view, I see that the dependencies we created before between elements from different projects are included here. However, at the moment, this consolidated schedule will not be updated based on the established dependencies between tasks in our project program. Let's create a few more connections between tasks, for example, task 1.3. I would like to link it to another task from this other project. So I'll choose Select an element from another project, choose the project from the list, and then select the task, a procedure we know that I would like to connect it with. Let's assume that both of these tasks should finish at the same time. After clicking Save, such a connection will be created in my program. However, for now, on the Gantt chart view, we will see arrows that will only have an informational function. For our dependencies to take effect and influence the aggregated schedule, and for the collective schedule for both projects to update accordingly and reflect all connections, I click the Recalculate Dependencies option at the top of the screen. Here, the system will show me what changes will look like on this project resulting from the dependencies. If I click Save, these changes will be saved, and this operation will be irreversible. So it's worth remembering to check the dependencies between tasks carefully. I click Save, and at this moment, a schedule will be created for me, which will be interconnected. If I change the date of this task, for example, it happens a few months earlier. The task linked in the view of our program will also update. After clicking Recalculate Dependencies, I see that such a change occurs. If we want to update our program schedule with new dependencies or changes, each time we need to use the Recalculate function. So if we want to manage dependencies between projects, we should do this through the project program, and in case we wish to update such a schedule, see how changes in one project affect changes in another by using the Recalculate Dependencies option. These dependencies allow us to intuitively create the sequence of tasks and activities within the project or between different projects. That's why I'd like to encourage you to create such dependencies, establish a new project plan, and link elements from one project to another using the Recalculate Dependencies option. Or if you're managing dependencies within a single project, you should create them too. Thank you for your attention. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. See you later.